Welcome to our CEO.CA users. My name is Amrit Gill and we are in Toronto, Canada for PDAC, the world's premier mineral exploration and mining convention. And who better to start the day off with than President of PDAC himself, Alex Christopher. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning and thank you for having me here.
Well, we are in full swing, lots of excitement in the air. How does this year compare to previous years?
Well, I think 2023 brings us back to, a full convention. So we've been impacted for the last 3 years by the COVID pandemic. So 2020 was just moving into the pandemic. We had companies pull out. 2021, we were fully virtual. And then 2022, we had to shift gears and move to a June convention at a much reduced floor space. So this year we're back to, I think it's 600,000 square feet of floor space, over 1,000 exhibitors, and I expect a lot out of the convention here this week.
Yeah, lots of faces in these spaces, and you've been in this industry for 40 years, upwards of 40 years. How has it evolved over your career?
Well, the PDAC itself, the convention, has changed dramatically over those 40 years. I think back in the early 80s when I first started coming to the convention, it was very small. It was all in the Royal York, focused really on the technical side of exploration, and it's like a different world today. We have a full lineup of programs, Indigenous programs, our sustainability programs, lots of foreign governments and Canadian government representation across all the provinces, and we still have our strong technical programs and the innovation side of things. So it's changed massively, and we've gone from a fairly small convention of a few thousand to plus 20,000 folks here on a regular basis.
Well, that gets into my next question. How does PDAC impact the broader resource industry?
Yeah, so I think the PDAC's role here in Canada, so we're the voice of the Canadian mineral exploration and development industry, and I think essentially our job here is to work with the companies, First Nations, communities, and governments to try and advance both the social impact of mining and exploration on communities, and the policy around exploration and mining in Canada. So that really is trying to ensure that we have access to land for our members, that we have access to the finance that they need, the capital that they need to go off and do their exploration, and then a lot of focus on early career programs, because the access to people and that human capital is a really important thing for the industry.
Well, we've seen ups and downs in the market for the last little bit. How can companies in this sector navigate these trying times?
Well, I'm going to tell you that it's very interesting, because ups and downs, these have been happening for decades and decades. So we see very cyclical commodity markets, and I think that the industry is extremely agile in terms of how it does things. So it flexes very well. And sometimes we'll see different commodities, different times in the cycle. So I think that essentially the entrepreneurship and the flexibility of the industry is really important here to weather through a number of these storms. And I think with that volatility comes resilience. And so it's a very resilient industry. And I think that is one of the big strengths of the industry, both here in Canada and globally.
So what are some key themes that you are seeing at this year's convention?
Well, I think we have a big program. So I think when we start thinking about it, obviously we've got a lot of focus on our sustainability programs, our Indigenous programs, our capital market programs. Those are our standard programs. But a lot of focus here when we start thinking about critical minerals. So that's a big piece of the puzzle here right now. It's a fair bit of change in terms of the attitude of folks over the last sort of 5 or 6 years with respect to how we think about critical minerals. And then we have a lot of focus here on things like inclusion and diversity. So a lot of focus on that side of the industry as well, moving more towards a modern era.
Is there anything else that you'd like to add for our users?
No, I think I'm stoked about the opportunity for the industry going forward here, particularly as we start to think about transitioning to a low carbon future. We need mines and so more metals and minerals here to help transition ourselves to that. We need more mines, not less, and we need to see sort of acceleration in terms of how we permit those to be able to meet all of our goals in terms of that low carbon future.
Well, thank you so much for your time today, Alex. I hope you enjoy the rest of the convention.
Thank you, and very nice meeting you.